The bad guys were always caught by Columbo, but Peter Falk had his own problems to deal with. He drank a lot and smoked 3 packs every day while filming his famous part. His relationships were known to everyone in Hollywood. His first wife finally gave up after 16 years and asked for a divorce. The worst part was that he stopped talking to his children. In 2008, when he died of Alzheimer's, his own daughter had to get court leave to visit for 30 minutes. But what we're about to show you is much more exciting. Watch out. In 1927, Peter Falk was born in the Bronx. Born in Russia, his family had roots in Eastern Europe, Hungary, and Bohemia. His dad ran a store. He had a mother who worked with numbers. When the Great Depression hit, things got really bad. Like a lot of other people, the Falks had to leave the city for something cheaper. Peter was only 3 years old when his preschool teacher saw something odd. He turned his head in a funny way to see. That small detail led to a discovery that changed her life. She had eye cancer, fast work by the doctors. Within 2 days, they took out his right eye. He had a glass eye on for the rest of his life. It made him look unique, and that look would become famous. But that was just the beginning. A lot of kids would have given up. No, Peter didn't. He was sure of himself, funny, and driven as a child. He was 6 years old when his family moved to Ossining, a small town close to New York City. One thing made the town famous: Sing Sing Prison. Peter often went with his dad to prison to sell clothes to the inmates. He got close to crooks. He even played basketball with teams from prisons. One of the prisoners, who was called Piggy Sands, stood out. They were skilled, quick, and tough. Later, when Peter played cops or thieves on TV and in movies, it all came back to him. He stood out at Ossini High School. He was vice president for 1 year and head of the class for 3. He was smart, funny, and well-liked. He played sports even though he had a fake eye on. It took grit for him to play baseball and hoops. He thought he was safe when he was called out at third base one day. He took out his glass eye in front of everyone and gave it to the referee. He told her, "This one will be easier for you." Everyone in the room laughed out loud. That moment told me a lot about him. He didn't run away from problems. Instead, he used them as jokes. After high school, Peter wanted to fight in WW2 for his country, but because of his eye, every branch of the military turned him down. Then he found a way out. The Merchant Navy didn't care as much about seeing. He joined in 1945 and worked in the kitchen. For 18 months, he was at sea. The only person on a ship who needed to see him was the captain, which was a joke. Even the Titanic's captain had trouble with that. After that, his path wasn't straight at all. He went to Hamilton College for a month, but dropped out after only 1 week. Way too serious, not enough girls and fun. He left, and in a brave move, he almost joined the Israeli army in 1948, when they were fighting for their freedom. He didn't have a deep political reason. He just wanted something exciting. He discovered a secret group in Manhattan that was helping Americans join the army. He was given a ship, but 8 days later the war finished. The plan was gone in an instant. Falk crossed countries because he was interested. After leaving the Merchant Navy, he went on a trip around Europe after the war. He worked as a railroad worker for 6 months in communist Yugoslavia. It was different from everything he knew, but that's what made it worth it. Not yet. He wasn't after fame. He was looking for experience. He finally went back to college and tried again. He went to the University of Wisconsin for a while, then back to Hamilton, and finally to the new school in New York. It was in Greenwich Village that he got his degree in 1951 in literature and political science. That mix said a lot about him, a dreamer and a person. He went to Paris with a girl after finishing. All in all, that's Peter Falk. Enthusiastic, rash, and always after something. His life changed for the better in 1953. Sonny gave him a master's degree in public administration. He had planned to work for the government, but he later said he wasn't really interested in it. He even tried to become a CIA agent. They turned him down because he used to work as a cook and was in a union. It was connected to communism, but Falk wasn't a part of it. That was still enough to shut the door. He got a job as a budget expert in Connecticut because of this. It made him mad. On his first day, he didn't even know where the office was. But he started acting at night while working as a mathematician during the day. He joined a neighborhood theater group and loved being on stage. He wasn't taught. He wasn't sure if he was good enough. But something worked. He began learning acting with Ava Legalin, who is famous for being a great teacher, to get into her class. He lied when he said he worked as an actress. She told him one day that he was late. It was true what he said. He wasn't very good. She looked at him and said, "Well, you should be." That one line changed his whole life. He quit his job with the government. Greenwich Village is where he now lives. And with just a word of recommendation in hand, Peter Falk chose to become an actor. When he was 3 years old, cancer took away his right eye. A lot of people thought it would keep him from acting, but Falk didn't care. A neighborhood theater group called the Mark Twain Massacres had already cast him in plays. He had been in scary plays like The Crucible and the Caine Mutiny Court-Martial. He was brave enough to go all in after those small steps. In the 1950s, Greenwich Village was the place to be for art. Crazy, loud, and artistic. Falk would have liked to be there. Falk started to learn how to be an actor while he still had a job in Hartford. Somehow, he was able to talk his way into a Westport special class run by legend Ava Legalin. They were the only ones she taught. Falk wasn't one. He lied to get in and then drove 70 miles every week to go to school. He was always late. Legal asked one day why. He said his job was in Hartford. She asked how he was able to act there for a living. He told her he wasn't an actor for a living, and she looked at him and said, "Well, you should be." That one line changed everything. Just before he left, she told a contact at William Morris that he should talk to that person. Falk also learned to act from Sanford Meisner, who is one of the best acting teachers in the United States. His methods were based on being honest and reacting emotionally. Falk would use these skills in his acts for years to come. Falk's first stage show in New York was in January 1956. At the 4th Street Theater, it was in Don Juan. Even though it only ran for one night, it wasn't a bad start. By May, he had a part in The Iceman Cometh at Circle in the Square. There were big stars in the play like Jason Rhodes. In November, people took notice. Falk's first show on Broadway was Diary of a Scoundrel. Even though it was only 3 weeks, it showed that he belonged on that stage. He was in St. Joan with Joan McKenna by the end of 1956. Up until January 1957, that one did pretty well. The year before, Falk worked for the government. Now he's an actor in big Broadway shows, but film was a harder hill to climb. The head of Columbia Pictures told Falk, "For the same price, I can get an actor with 2 eyes." Most people would give up after hearing that, but Falk kept going. In 1958, he got a small part in Nicholas Ray's film Wind Across the Everglades. He got to work on a movie set even though it wasn't a big part. In the Canadian crime movie The Bloody Brood, which came out in 1959, he played a beatnik killer. Not very exciting, but it added to his experience. He was also making a name for himself in TV at the same time. From 1957 on, he was on big variety shows like Kraft Television Theater, Studio One, and Robert Montgomery Presents. He even had a test run for the part in the movie Marjorie Morningstar, but didn't get it. The movie business still wasn't sure about him. After that, in 1960, Murder, Inc. came out. In real life, Falk played a police officer named Abe Relez. The movie didn't cost much and was shot in just 9 days. Folks at thrift stores helped Falk find his outfit. The bad guys he based the character on were ones he remembered seeing at a pool hall when he was younger. It was very exciting. Someone in the New York Times said that Falk seemed innocent until he pulled out an ice pick. The sudden change in mood that made people stop and watch was what made his act stand out. Even though the movie didn't have a big budget or much promotion, Falk was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Character. Stars from big studio movies like Spartacus and The Apartment were up against him. Even though he didn't win, just being nominated was a big deal. The movie industry was finally paying attention. Falk also got a nod that same year. He was the first actor to be nominated for both an Oscar and an Emmy in the same year, 1961. The next year, he did it again. Peter Falk had a crazy event happen to him in 1961. For Best Supporting Performance in Pocket Full of Miracles, he was up for his second Oscar in a row. He had been nominated for his first Murder, Inc. award just a year before. You should have been proud of that on its own, but now comes the crazy part. That same year, he was also nominated for an Emmy. This is something he did for 2 years in a row. That was something no actor had ever done before. At the heart of it all was a production that was having trouble. After the fact, director Frank Capra said that making the movie was terrible, but Falk was the only good thing about it. Capra even said that Falk made him forget about being tired and wanting to kill Glenn Ford. He loved Falk's acting so much that he filmed a scene again just to see it again. It was the same movie that made Anne Margaret famous. Being on screen for the first time meant that Falk was making history, but awards weren't the only thing that made Falk stand out. It was how much he put into every part. The people in charge said he worked like he was crazy. After being nominated for 2 Oscars and winning one for the Dick Powell Theater in 1962, Falk went into speed. He didn't just play parts, he became them. He worked as a police officer for 3 weeks before playing one. He went on overnight watch. He wanted a full childhood story for a figure who only had 14 minutes of screen time in The Great Race. For a part in 1964, he lost 18 pounds in 2 weeks. He also refused painkillers when he got hurt on the job. He said that the real pain would help them do better. His focus followed him when he wasn't on camera. In 1967, he played a part for so long on a movie that his co-star, Julie Harris, asked to eat lunch somewhere else. It was too much for her to handle. From 1961 to 1967, Falk worked as an actor in both TV shows and movies, even as he got into character. From the late 1950s to the early 1960s, he was on TV shows like Robert Montgomery Presents and Kraft Television Theater. In 1961, he was up for an Emmy for The Law and Mr. Jones and Target, The Corruptors. He also appeared in the opening of Target, The Corruptors with Walter Matthau. He played a crazy ruler on The Twilight Zone. He played a creepy gangster and a fake preacher on Alfred Hitchcock's show. He did some dark things, but not all of them. In Wagon Train, he played a man who had to decide whether to save his brother or drive a wagon. He also kept getting parts in big movies like The Great Race and It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. It was the first time anyone had ever won both an Emmy and an Oscar in the same year, 1962. Behind the scenes, though, things were not always easy. People were starting to say that Falk was a real pain. Directors said he fought over lines, camera settings, doors, and everything else. He had them do 37 takes of a simple entrance for one movie because the door wouldn't open right. During Anzio, he got into such a bad fight with director Edward Dietrich that they could only talk with help. By 1966, some leaders were getting ready for the chaos Falk would cause by adding Falk clauses to their contracts. Some producers didn't agree with the statement, "You put up with hell because what ends up on screen is heaven." Some managers no longer work with him at all. Things changed in 1968. Falk put on a heavy jacket and became Lieutenant Columbo on February 20. At first, no one thought he would get the part. There was a plan to have Bing Crosby, but Crosby turned them down. He didn't want to stop playing golf. Columbo had been played by 2 other artists before Falk. In 1960, they were on TV, and in 1962, they were on stage. But when director Richard Irving offered Falk, the writers weren't sure what to do. They thought he was too young, but Falk told them he would give anything to be that cop. Because he loved it so much, he played Columbo for 35 years. The character's look came straight from Falk. That old coat of rain was his. Because he wore it so much, it fell apart after 25 years and had to be replaced. Falk made Columbo look like someone you would walk past without noticing. In one scene, he was thought to be a homeless person. It worked just fine. Suspects always thought less of him. That was the trick. They saw a guy who was messy and awkward, but there was a very smart mind behind the bad haircut and cheap cigars. His dog didn't even have a name. It was just called Dog. Then the term came along, one more thing. That wasn't supposed to happen. It was added quickly when the writers rewrote the scene. They did not want to type the whole page again. Columbo was told to turn around and ask one more question. It didn't move. Falk made a gun out of it. They thought they were safe, but then boom, one more thing. It became so well known that Falk used it as the subject of his autobiography. Columbo was famous for more than just that word, though. With its own style, the show changed everything. A lot of crime shows were whoops. You had no idea who killed them. Columbo, on the other hand, had the murder shown right from the start. It was exciting to see how Columbo figured it out. It didn't matter who did it. It had to do with how he would catch them. People could focus on the clever details in this style, which is called a how catch them. Small things like a shoelace, the air conditioner in a car, or caviar that was left over. It looked more like a game of chess than a chase. Even though you knew what would happen, it was still exciting to watch it happen. Peter Falk did so much more than play a detective. He became well known. He became one of the most famous TV stars ever for his part as Columbo. In 1972, 1975, 1976, and again in 1990, he got 4 Primetime Emmys. He also won a Golden Globe in 1973. But what really shocked people was that he was the first actor to be nominated for both an Emmy and an Oscar in the same year. He also did that very rare double twice. Once in 1961 and once in 1962. He was making $250,000 for each Columbo show by 1976. That's more than $1. These days, that would be $3 million per show. At the time, it was the best pay in TV. Why? Because NBC didn't want to lose him. In the 1930s, Columbo was getting good scores from Nielsen. Advertisers were willing to pay a lot of money. Everyone was excited about Columbo. The love didn't go away even after many years. Back in 1996, TV Guide named Falk the 21st best TV star of all time. After 2 years, they said Columbo was the 7th best TV figure of all time. Steven Spielberg, who was still young at the time, directed an episode from 1971 called Murder by the Book. That episode made it all the way to number 16 on their list of the 100 best ever. Columbo was also known for having bad guys, not just any players, big names. It was an honor to play a killer on the show. 5 stars have only ever played more than one killer. 4 times. Patrick McGoohan did it. Robert Culp did 3. After that, Jack Cassidy, George Hamilton, and William Shatner showed up. Nelson, Oscar, Colonel Rumford, and Eric were some of the killers McGoohan played. 4 very different guys. In one episode, Culp played a killer who had subliminal pictures that made people think they were being killed. That was in the 1973 movie Double Exposure. There were a lot of times when the show put famous, wealthy actors in murder scenes with the dirty, looking Columbo. It was always about smarts over flash, the poor guy vs. the strong elite. Columbo became more than just crime TV with that setup. It turned it into a statement on class. Behind the scenes, things were not calm. NBC and Falk had a fight. The show's creators wanted Columbo to stay out of the first 20 minutes of each episode. NBC didn't like that plan. They also didn't like the idea of Columbo's wife, who they could not see. The artistic team and Falk said they would quit. Things didn't calm down after that. In 1973, Falk was so afraid of losing control of the show that he hired someone to look out for his best interests. Writing scripts had to be kept secret. Falk would still get early picks in some way. When the directors tried to push Falk too far, he would give speeches that were so angry they sounded like they were from gangster movies. They did their job. The executives pulled back. When they wouldn't let him direct, he even stopped work by saying he was sick. In the end, they gave up. He was in charge of Blueprint for Murder in 1971. But there was a cost to all that power. NBC had had enough by 1978 that Falk wanted more cash. The budgets were getting bigger. The show was called off. Falk broke rules even when he wasn't with Columbo. The two met at the Paramount cafeteria in 1967. John C. Veets was an independent director. C. Veets thought of a story about 3 friends who go crazy when one of their friends dies. That turned into Husbands in 1970, but the money ran out. The players, including Falk, gave up almost $1 million to make it happen. Falk wasn't used to the free way that C. Veets used. He said, "I don't know what he's talking about, but they figured it out." In 1974, Falk starred in the movie A Woman Under the Influence. He played a working-class man who was having a hard time dealing with his mentally ill wife. 2 Oscars were given to that movie. Feminist author Betty Friedan even said nice things about husbands. She said in a 1971 article in the New York Times that it showed that guys were also trapped. They are lost, lonely, and looking for a real relationship. Falk also did really well with comedy. The In-Laws came out in 1979. It cost $9 million to make, but it made $38. $2 million. He played Vince Ricardo, a strange CIA spy who caused trouble for his future in-law, Alan Aaron, who played a nervous dentist. People still talk about the scene where Falk yells serpentine, while Arkin dodges me, duck bullets. The critics loved them both together. Some people said they were like the makers but better. The movie became so well known that the CIA showed it to new agents at their training camp. It wasn't as good as the version that came out in 2003. The first one stayed a standard. Then he played one of his softest parts in The Princess Bride, 1987. Falk played the grandfather who read his sick grandson a fairy tale. It made $30. $9 million. It wasn't a big deal at the time, but it became a cult favorite. Falk's voice gave it a smart and friendly tone. Things he said, like As You Wish, were just the right amount of sweet and funny. His parts gave the movie its heart. Roger Ebert even said that Falk's voice was sweet but not too sweet, with just the right amount of edge to keep it interesting. The movie was later chosen to be kept alive in the National Film Registry of the United States. Falk had done everything by this point: comedy, drama, and even directing. He directed more episodes of Columbo, and some sources said he also directed others in secret. For one line, he was known to do dozens of takes before getting it right, and his pay kept going up as the years went by. When Columbo came back in 1989, he was making $600,000 per show. He even thought about making one last movie called Columbo's Last Case. The party for the detective's retirement would be the start, but the network wasn't interested, and Falk's health was getting worse. Still, that part of him that was never happy and always interested stayed. That was the part of Peter Falk that never gave up, never stopped working, and never let go of the story. It was the part that made Columbo tilt his head, squint, and say, "Just one more thing." Peter Falk seemed to have everything going for him. He got a lot of attention, money, and awards for his part as Lieutenant Columbo. But that charming, messy detective had been through a lot of pain, betrayal, and strife in his life. In 1960, he finally married Alice Mayo, a woman he had been after for 12 years. They fell in love, got married, and then adopted 2 girls, Catherine and Jackie. In the same year, Falk was up for an Oscar. From the outside, everything looked fine, but cracks were already showing. On TV, Falk was seen as a trustworthy and kind detective, but in real life, he was living a very different story. He was known for chasing women on almost every movie set he went to. People on the crew would secretly bet on who he'd next flirt with. He began seeing Shara Denise, who was 22 years younger than him, while he was still married to Alice. It wasn't just her. It was known that Falk juggled several women, sometimes in different towns. People who work in Hollywood weren't shocked. Everyone found out that he had been cheating. It wasn't over for him, though. The author Falk drank a lot and smoked a lot. Every day, 3 packs, vodka for lunch, and fights on set. It took him an hour to light a cigarette every hour. He was awful to work with for directors. He insisted on rewrites, fought over camera settings, and slowed down and cost more for every production. Studios admired his skills, but didn't like the trouble he caused. Some people were even afraid to hire him by 1976. Things were worse at home. She worked hard for 16 years to keep the marriage together. She took care of their daughters and didn't talk about his business. But by the end of 1975, she was done. Alice couldn't stand it anymore that Falk was dating Shara Denise in public. Back in 1976, she asked for a divorce. Not much going on, just a quiet goodbye. She got the house and help, but she never said bad things about him in public. She was polite for their daughter's sake. Falk was making $250,000 an episode on Columbo at the same time, but as his fame grew, he spent less time with his children. He was away for weeks, at a time from 1971 to 1976. That same year, his older daughter Catherine sued him because he stopped paying for her college at Syracuse. He went to court with her even though he was worth more than $5 million by 1975. Their relationship fell apart. Things got even worse when he married Shara in December 1977, not even a year after his divorce. The year she won was 1970, and she was Miss Pennsylvania World. She was beautiful, driven, and eager. No one thought they would be married for 33 years, but there were fights, separations, and stress during that time. More bad things happened to Falk as he aged. Falk's autobiography, Just One More Thing, came out in 2006. Like him, it was funny, honest, and a mess. He didn't stick to a plan. He only told stories. He had cancer as a child that took his eye. 12 years of hard work to become an actress. Being friends with famous people like John Seaveats. It was Falk's own words. Things quickly changed, though. In 2007, dental surgery seemed to cause a quick drop. He was told he had Alzheimer's in 2008. Then there was a court case. In 2009, his daughter Catherine asked to be in charge of the household. Shayla was stopping her from seeing her dad, she said. Shara said Catherine only wanted money. Both sides blamed the other in court. Catherine said that her dad had sent her hundreds of postcards one time. That's when she said Shara hit her with the door. Falk's lawyers fought back with Falk's diary, which said he hadn't talked to Catherine in years. The judge tried to make things fair. It was Shara in charge, but Catherine could only come over every other month for 30 minutes. He wasn't even aware of her because Falk's mind was so messed up at that point. It broke my heart. The man who played a detective known for having a lot of heart couldn't even remember his own daughter. After that, the last blow, he was 83 years old when he died on June 23, 2011. A life that had once been so bright was cut short by pneumonia and Alzheimer's. Kate didn't get a call, though. No good. By word for family or friends. Like everyone else, she learned about it from the news. The whole world was sad. Steven Spielberg told him he was great. Robin Williams said he was one of the best comedic artists ever. There was quiet, though, that hurt more than any words could say. It was again just him and his girls.